remember telling the guys like, hey, we don't know this won't work. It's never been done before. We don't know it won't work. If we try it, and it is risky to try it on a pay-per-view, no doubt. It was risky as hell, but I just knew with that talent and the amount of bodies that we had that, man, we could get something good out of this if everybody put their best foot forward. And I think it ended up stealing the show.
What's up, Bengal fans? It's your host, Joey Karni. I want to thank you for clicking on this video. It was an amazing experience, and I can't wait for you to see the full interview. Now, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment down below your favorite part at the end of the video. Now enjoy the show.
Oh, wrestling fans! Don't you dare be sour! Clap for the Angle Podcast and feel the power!
Ladies and gentlemen, The Angle proudly presents the world's most talked about pro wrestling sensation.
It's the Angle Podcast. How exciting!
Studios out in LA, Hollywood, and he had this website called geekweek.com, and it kind of was the two of us brainstorming together. When I had my 90-day no compete from WWE, all I did was play Left 4 Dead 90 days straight. That's all I did. And so one of the guys I played with was the guy I'm talking about, and we're just brainstorming about things to do, and he wanted me to do a live streaming show on his website. And that was kind of the birth of it. So I started doing this live streaming show, which I was like, why don't we just record this and put this out as in many formats as we can? And so, so it was on YouTube. It was a live video pod. Of course, we went to iTunes, and I was in the iTunes top 10 all the time back then, especially in sports category. For a sports video pod, I was beating out UFC and Major League Baseball, so I was doing pretty good with it. And I had some good names. I had some UFC fighters on there. I had Capadonna from the Wu-Tang Clan. So, I was just going crazy, man. I would just reach out to these people like, let me just see, just like you did with me. Let me just see if they say yes. Maybe they'll say yes.
Exactly.
And so it was just that, just kind of having fun, trying to do something that, nobody else was doing at the time. So,
of course,
it sounds like I had this great big brainstorm, but it really, it just kind of sitting around with some buddies and tossing ideas back and forth.
That's really, I think, how it starts. I mean, all the time with these situations where like you kind of, have talks with friends and stuff like that. And then you think, you know what, maybe I can do this. And you just, you do it. It's a pretty cool scenario when it turns out like that.
I think my friend Jeff, what his thing was, he's like, dude, he goes, you're the funniest guy I hang around. And I want to pat myself on the back here. But he's like, man, I hang around these comedians all the time. He goes, and they're like miserable when they're not on stage. He goes, you're like funny all the time. He's like, and that was what the conversation, how it came about. Like, how do we channel that? Like, we know you can wrestle, but that can't last forever. And so it was just like how to channel the actual real Shane Helms as opposed to a character that I was playing on the show.
Of course. Now, I know you spoke about being furloughed by WWE. I know you obviously get asked about it all the time. It's a huge topic right now. Did you have any idea that this is kind of where they were going with that? I mean, the list that they put out, the amount of people, I mean, it goes back and forth with people's opinions, but was there any thought in your mind that, maybe this can happen?
Oh, yeah. When them tickets stopped coming in, there was no doubt. I was already planning, just at least I was preparing for the phone call. So it wasn't a big shock. You got very little money coming in now compared to what used to be, so of course it wasn't a shock to my system whatsoever. And I've been in this situation before. I was one of the newer guys, and at the same time I was in a transitional period to actually being an employee, going from a talent contract to a employee contract. So I was kind of like new to that part anyway. So it wasn't that big of a deal, and I thought it was kind of easy to. I understand why they did what they did. It's no heat, skin off my back whatsoever.
Yeah. Now, how was that transition going from the talent to the backstage role? I know, you see that a lot with big superstars today. I mean, is it an easy transition? Is there some things you kind of have to, tisk for task, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, there's a learning curve. There's some things you got to start to do differently. There's a way that talent views management. Sometimes that isn't always accurate. There's a way that management views talent that isn't always accurate. So it was interesting to be on the other side of the ball, so to speak, to, like, wait a minute, this is a little bit different on this side. But I enjoyed it. I'm a creative person. I like being involved in the industry. And I actually like that producer job. I like that. I think that was a good fit for me. And I didn't have any plans to even climb the ladder. I wanted to stay there. I didn't want to be in charge of creative or lead creative. I like what that producer gig entailed, but there was some things that, you kind of have to learn, corporate meetings and stuff like that. Not really my wheelhouse, but I was learning, or at least I was trying to adapt.
Yeah, it's like switching that gym time and time with the boys, where it's like now you're in a different environment, all suited up, and I totally get it. Was there any I don't know if you could say match or segment that you really enjoyed most that you were a part of creating while in that producer role? Anything that really, like, that when people ask you, that's the first thing that comes to mind?
The first one that really comes to mind actually is the Survivor Series this past year, where I had the men's match, where every match where it was a triple threat the entire time, just because that had never been done.
Okay.
So me and Jamie Noble worked on that together, and a lot of guys didn't want to do that. They didn't want it to be a triple threat the entire time. They wanted it to be two guys in the ring and they could tag out to one of the three teams. But we stuck to the guns, and I remember telling the guys, like, hey, we don't know this won't work. It's never been done before. We don't know it won't work. If we try it, and it is risky to try it on a pay-per-view, no doubt. It was risky as hell, but I just knew with that talent and the amount of bodies that we had that, man, we could get something good out of this if everybody put their best foot forward. And I think it ended up stealing the show.
I think so too. The inclusion of NXT in general to that event was probably, it's probably one of my favorite pay-per-views, I think, in a while, just because we saw so much action. Like you said, the triple threat, the inclusion of NXT. I think that was.
And I think the way we built it, the end, the finale with Keith Lee and Roman Reigns, we had that whole building believing that Keith Lee was going to come out with that. And even when he lost, still nobody really booed Roman Reigns. So it was good. There's a lot of thought that went into what we did with that. And I'm very proud of that one.
Of course, and I know you're familiar with it, but that SmackDown, I think it's referred to the best SmackDown in the history of SmackDown. That was November 1st, when with the travel issues they had, that nobody can get to SmackDown, and they had Pat on there. Were you involved in that in any way?
Was that after the Saudi show?
I think it was the one, where they got stuck over there, or some.
No, I was one of the guys that was stuck.
Oh wow! Okay. Either you're there or you're here. Yeah, so how was that experience?
It was really like the media really blew it out. Like, unless they completely hit everything for me. All the talk about the plane, like, we had the one plane. It wasn't like in America where you own American Airlines and there's a bunch of planes out there. We had the one.
Wow.
And we couldn't interchange the flight crew because we brought them with us. You know what I'm saying? Like this, and the flight crew has to get a certain amount of rest, and the pilot has to get a certain amount of rest. And when the thing with the plane happened, the mechanical difficulties, and now the pilot didn't have enough rest. That's a federal law that, they can't just go, hey, I'm okay, I can make it. You can't do that.
Yeah. And
like I said, we brought him with us. They didn't have just a pilot they could call him and go, hey, we need you to fly America. We got a bunch of angry assholes out there. But and then, like, that being said, man, they put us in 5-star hotels. They were feeding us silly. And I didn't know about any of the drama that was being reported on social media whatsoever. And I remember I was literally taking a picture of a dessert because we're back at the hotel. And it was aggravating being delayed, but I've been traveling for a quarter of a century now. So delays happen. You either get angry or you roll with it.
Exactly.
What are you going to do? And so anyway, we're back at the hotel, and I'm over there with my phone taking a picture of a dessert tray. to send back home. And then I get this text because I guess, I mean, maybe I didn't have Wi-Fi while we were on the buses from the, maybe in the terminal or something. I can't remember exactly what happened, but I hadn't messaged home in a few hours. And so then I get this message from my woman, and she's upset. She's like, I heard you guys are trapped. And I'm like, what? Like, yeah, I'm stuffing my face with this cake. That's why trapped I am. Like, if this is trapped, I'm gonna stay over here.
Yeah.
But you know, then you hear all the weird stories. So I really can't tell you 100% for certain. I know exactly what happened, but I know I was treated fine. They treated us fine. A lot of the guys kind of get hysterical over anything. Some of the younger guys, you know, but
yeah,
man, I've had so many travel snafus. It was just another day at the office for me.
Of course, and I think more of it than anything, the fans were just making it way worse than it was on social media, and just
well, some of the websites were too, and I thought that was very irresponsible because they didn't care about our families reading that. My dad got upset. My dad left work when he heard this news. My father, you know, my father's 68 years old at the time. He left work, and I remember like, not one of these reporters give a shit about that. Yep. They don't care about what they putting our families through, just putting this stuff out there, all these rumors.
Yep.
And in this day and age, rumors travel faster than facts. They just do, especially if they sound sexy.
Yep.
You know, so you know, and then when everything came out that we're fine, you know, I really didn't hear any of those sites going, hey, you know, we kind of jumped the gun on that one. You know,
Never.
The only person that really reached out to me, and all of these sites anybody can get a hold of me. There's nobody that's been more accessible in social media since it began than Hurricane Helms. No one, not one professional wrestler been more accessible to me. And Sean Ross Sapp from FightPro.com, he's the only one that reached out to me and said, hey, man, are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. What the hell? Because like I said, I didn't know what was going on. So he gets my respect because, you know, he just took into consideration, you know, our families are going to be reading some of that rumor. So that did get me kind of hot. Yeah,
and for me, being on the other side now, before being, you know, just a fan in the stands, now being on the other side, you know, having the interaction with people such as yourself, seeing those websites and those, I guess, podcasters or interviewers just put out whatever to, you know, for more retweets and more comments. I don't know. It kind of changed my perspective a lot of how I want to conduct my business.
Yeah.
Just that situation in itself, just the way that it was handled, because everything that was put out, I mean, I think he was on ESPN too. They put something that it was completely inaccurate.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's just one of those things that I figured out.
Yeah, you know, Denzel there's a very famous interviewer where he's talking to someone in media, and he's just really, he said it better than I ever could, but he was just talking about how powerful of a responsibility that the media has just to be right. He goes, everybody's trying to be first. How about being right?
Yep.
And like that always stuck with me.
And they never seem to apologize to it for you.
No, they don't care.
Put out those facts and they just push it down their news feed.
Yeah, by the way, we terrorized y'all's families with this inaccurate information, but
yeah. Anyway, but I know that with
what is that ding? What is that? Somebody ringing in?
Yeah, it's my phone going off. I don't know.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if you had some kind of segment here.
No. I'll let you know. I don't know why that's even going off. But back to what I was saying with the furloughs and everything, we see a lot of stars using that almost as a reset. I know that they've used Drake Maverick's situation on NXT. We saw it on Raw with Heath Slater. EC3 reinventing himself.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts on the direction that they're going now that you see some stars like this coming back? I mean, I know it's part of the 90-day no compete clause, July 18th, that's kind of done. But what is your thoughts on that?
I mean, anybody that can somehow better themselves and present themselves differently so that they can create a new opportunity for themselves. Of course, I'd always be a fan of that. So, you know, I liked it, the Drake Maverick thing. I keep saying Jake for some reason, but the Drake Maverick thing, I really appreciated the hard work that he put into it. It did kind of send a weird message that this guy gets fired during a pandemic, but if he begs and pleads for his job back, he can get it.
Yeah.
that kind of sent a weird message to a degree, but at the same time, I think that young rockstar Spud is doing some of the best work of his career right now. So I'm very happy for
I
him.
agree.
And there's a lot more interest on that Cruiserweight title right now, more so than there's been in a while, if I'm being honest. You know, especially with Santos Escobar.
Yeah.
Might be my favorite name going right now. So, you know, definitely for Drake, it worked out. EC3, I know, had wanted to make some kind of change for himself anyway, even before the furlough. So,
Of course.
this kind of presented a perfect time. What you see with Gallows and Anderson, you know, they're constantly generating interest for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and they did that to get them to WWE. And the second that they were out, they just picked up the ball right back up. You look at what the Revival did, FTR, you know, they kept that interest rolling. So there'll be some guys that, you know, they push forward through it all. And there'll be some that kind of fade away. You know, that's going to happen. That's always been the case. You know, I've been one of those list of people that got let go. And like I said, some of those names are going to fade away and you won't hear from them again. And that's the nature of the beast. But there's going to be some people that plug along that you know, they get knocked down, but they're going to get right back up.
Of course. And I know you were talking about in 2010 you first got furloughed from WWE, correct?
Yeah. I like saying furloughed now.
Furloughed.
That's my favorite thing.
It's a nicer term.
Yeah.
Being furloughed back in 2010 and now again in 2020.
So once every 10 years, I get furloughed by WWE. I think that's my new gig.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How is that? Is it different in any way for you now, you know, being in a different position in your life and you know, back then in 2010, how is it different?
You know, man, I got lucky because I was really, I was in a weird place back then too. I kind of needed a break from WWE. I didn't want a break from wrestling, but I needed a break from WWE. I wasn't a fan of that ECW show that I was on. And, you know, I that's the most handcuffed I think I'd ever felt my career was on that show.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to get out of that, you know, situation anyway. And I'd already talked with, you know, Johnny Ace, who was the head of talent relation at the time. I'd already talked to him about taking a break because my contract was up that year anyway. And so I'd already talked to him. I was like, man, maybe I just need to try something else for a little bit, you know, because I don't want to be on this ECW show. And the ECW, if you remember at the time, was on the Sci-Fi Network, and they wanted the Hurricane character on that because I was the Sci-Fi character. They wanted me on that show. And I'm like, okay, but do something with me then. If y'all going to just keep me on that show, I want to do more. And we were kind of butting heads creatively at that time. So I wanted to take a break. So when I got furloughed in, like literally, it was the easiest phone call that I bet they ever had to make. I was like, okay, I'm cool. No worries, no big deal. And you know, I had so many opportunities at that time. I really didn't care. I was like, you know, after this 90 days is up, man, the world, you know, I'm gonna just keep doing my thing. And I did. I never disappeared. You know, I was all over the place. You know, I know I signed a contract with what was the company? Oh yeah, Lucha Libre USA. I went for them for a couple of years. I was having a blast on the Indies. I could just do whatever I wanted to, when I wanted to. If I wanted to take 5 months off, I could. I never did, but if I wanted to take, you know, 3 or 4 weeks, a month off, that's what I did. And, you know, in the meantime, I became a father, so it allowed me to be home. Like, I never wanted to have a kid when I was on the road.
Yeah.
That was one of the main things why I never had a kid when I was in WWE at the time, because I would be gone so much. Yeah. And I saw what that had done to other families. I would see that. I would hear some of the conversations. And so, you know, I got to be home with my son being born, and I was home for months after he was born. And then I would only, you know, do weekend shows. So I was really in a good spot, very fortunate spot then. So now it's weird. You know, I'm a little bit more financially stable now than I was then. But because I got kids, I don't know if you're ever stable when you got kids. And because there's nothing really going on, you know, so I still got other ventures. So I still got money coming in. You know, like I said, I'm very lucky, you know, in a lot of different ways. But I don't really worry too much about it. You know, like when I got the text, you know, it all went out in a mass text and a mass email. But then, you know, I got personal phone calls from people in the company, you know, that, he wanted to talk to me about it. I was like, hey, no, don't worry about some of these other guys, man. I'll be okay.
Wow, it's a crazy story. And I know that you have one of the most, to me at least, one of the most interesting careers stemming almost 30 years, right? 30 years, almost been in the business?
Being involved in the business, yes, in excess of 30 years. I got involved in the business in 1988. That's when I got first stepped in the ring. I got involved in, I guess you could say, production back in the day. It was basically ring crew, but that's a part of production. It just is. But at like 14, 15, I was helping book an indie company.
Wow.
At 15, I was a referee. No, at 16, I was a referee. 15, I was a referee. 16, I had my first match, and that was in 1991.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So how did you really find pro wrestling? Was it something that was just around in your childhood, or someone introduced you to it, or?
No, my dad was a big fan. My dad was a huge fan. He would buy the wrestling magazines. He would watch, every Saturday morning. If it was on Saturday evening, we'd watch it, and I'd watch it with him. And he took me to my first show with him, and that was in 1979 in Charlotte, North Carolina. So the first time I went to see a big show, and that was the NWA.
Wow. That's awesome.
And that was all I ever wanted to do, and I had a really, pretty strange childhood. We moved all over the place. I was kind of academically gifted. I like to say kind of. I didn't stick with it. I feel like if I was smarter, I would have. But, I was, I took the SAT in 7th grade. I was really one of those kids, but all I wanted to do was wrestle. That's all I wanted to do. And so 13 years old, I was living in a town called Wendell, North Carolina, and a local company, a local indie company came. And so I rode my bike a couple miles up the road, stuck around after the show just to talk to some guys. I was 13, like I said. And one of the guys ended up being my tag team partner in Omega years later, Mike Maverick. He was one of the guys that go, yeah, you can get in here. And it was real funny because talking to him years later, he goes, man, he said, I've never done that before or since. He goes, I don't even know why that day we let you get in the ring. He goes, but for some reason we did. Yeah. And then you stuck around. And, I just kind of had a mind for it because they would have these like booking meetings, so to speak. And there I was, and probably 14 at that time. And I would just present ideas. And they were like, man, this little kid he's got a little head on his shoulders, And so I just stuck with it and never gave up. Even when I was going to college, getting a dual degree. And I just the whole time wrestling every weekend, working and going to college every day. So wow, I just never gave up.
And it's a tough schedule too, both, staying in school and doing well, like you said, and also with the wrestling too. So that's a lot on your plate. Who are some of your greatest inspirations or mentors throughout your career?
I was really inspired by the totality of this show. Once I really fell in love with wrestling, I started to understand what was going on, what was really happening. I started to pay attention, not just to the top guys. And I think that's why it helped me the most, was not just paying attention to what was going on in that main event, but watch the whole show, understand the structure of a show. So my inspirations are pretty wide, and pretty vast. As far as once I started working, and we're just, in WCW, Canyon and DDP helped me more than anybody. Eric Bischoff was the one that hired me, so I always got to thank Eric for that. But Canyon and DDP helped me so much. Then you get to WWE, and I started to do this Hurricane character, which was really difficult, at that time. So there was a lot of people, Undertaker was a good mentor. Flair took me under his wing here and there. So I was really blessed in the guys that took an interest with me, And even to this day, I'll get a phone, Steve Austin will call me. We'll just talk about the business, different things, what we like and what's going on. So a lot of guys, really inspire me in terms of how I handle myself and stuff like that. So yeah. Booker T, I just talked to Bubba Ray the other day. I love what Bubba Ray's doing on Sirius XM. Wow. Booker T and the Black Snow character is my new favorite thing on Twitter, seeing some of those clips.
Yeah, is that in the TNA days?
Yeah, Black Snow.
I just had on Dave LaGreca.
Yeah.
Last week, and we were talking about Bully or Bubba Bully, whatever he goes by today. It's crazy that those guys that you list, I mean, those are like the top guys. I mean, people who are not necessarily wrestling fans will know those names, those really iconic names. So that's cool. I mean, those are the people who took you under their wing, sort of say, like you said, and gave you that advice. Now jumping to 2018, the Royal Rumble, how did that play out, being that surprise entrant? Because I have to say, there's two pops that I think in my entire life that I've never been able to like compare it to anything else. And one is when the Hardys come back at WrestleMania, and two is when the Hurricane comes out in the Royal Rumble.
And Carolina boys, man, that came about. Actually, I can tell you exactly step by step how that came about. Enzo Amore was the Cruiserweight champion. He got in trouble. Something happened with him, and I don't know all the details. I don't like speaking on it, but he had like some kind of problem, and I guess they let him go. He got furloughed, and so I still have the WCW Cruiserweight title, and I have a replica of the WWE Cruiserweight title that I held forever. And so I just put up an Instagram picture of me holding those two championships, just in reference, because now the Cruiserweight title was vacant. And I was just like, hey, WWE, I know a guy like that, just being funny. I mean, if you see me on social media, you know how I am. Sometimes I have an agenda, but for the most part, I just put out stuff to make people laugh, make people pop, that sort of thing. So that was what that was. And well, apparently it went viral. And so, and I had known that my name had came up in previous Rumbles about a surprise appearance, but I was either injured or I was working for another company. I was just recently with Ring of Honor, 2018, with TNA for a couple years before that. So whatever the case might have been, when my name had came up in the past, it just didn't work out. Yeah. But now my name comes up again because of that Instagram picture. Wow. I happen to be free. No injuries. So it just kind of worked out perfectly.
Wow. And even being involved in that match, and then you have John Cena, that whole scenario with him in that match, I mean, like I said, being a wrestling fan, one of the biggest pops. Oh, wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and John was super gracious. I knew that spot, if I was going to do another Bushwhacker spot, they realized afterward they should have left me in there longer. But sometimes you don't know. They just kind of wanted me to pop me in there and see what would happen. They had already had Ray was going to be in there for a longer time, so they kind of wanted to separate the two ideas. One be quick, one get some time. And I understand that, no big deal. But they certainly didn't expect me to get that pop.
Yeah.
And but like I knew if I was going to do the Bushwhacker spot again, since I had did it once before with Austin and Triple H in 2000 and whatever year that was. I went to, when I was talking to Cena, I was like, man, it has to be you. And he was like, yeah, it does. And so he was cool, man. He was cool in the game. So if he said no, I'd have had to figure some other shit out. Luckily, he said yeah, and it worked out great. Awesome. It worked out great, except for when he threw me over, I almost broke my damn back stepping on those pancakes because the pancakes were all over the floor. I about busted my ass.
Those pancakes, man. I know. I want to get over to the different characters that you've had over the years. You have, Sugar Shane, the Hurricane, Gregory Helms. What is your favorite era of yourself, or favorite character that you've played?
Well, I mean, the Hurricane was a lot of fun. And, I mean, it was probably the most difficult challenge, because it was one of those things, it was never supposed to last that long. It just wasn't. Stephanie McMahon, she was the one that presented the idea to me. And her exact words were, we'll give it a couple weeks, a few months at the most.
Yeah.
And that was in 2001. So very challenging. I think I made it look easy. And because I did, people thought it was easy, but it wasn't. And if you remember that roster at that time, the most stacked roster that there has ever been, ever in the history of the business. And there I am dressed up like a damn superhero. But, like I said, I made it work, and just by commitment alone, I think I made that work. But my best body of work in terms of wrestling was when I was Gregory Helms, when I made that heel turn. Yeah. And I'm more known for the Cruiserweight title run, but if you go back and watch, man, I'm working Batista, I'm working Booker T. I was in there I was out of that division as much as I was in. Yeah. And so anytime they needed anything, they would come to me. And I remember I was doing commentary one time, and I think it was I don't know why I was doing commentary, but they sent me out there as Gregory Helms to do commentary in a match. And maybe it was watching a Jimmy Yang match or something. And I made this comment about how I was somehow the most overworked yet underutilized guy in the entire business. And I came back and Vince was like, that's a good line. And I was like, yeah, because it's true.
Wow. And I remember at that time too, I was a teenager watching you as the Gregory Helms character. And that, like you said, the Cruiserweight title reign is really iconic, I think, for that generation of pro wrestling fans. And I remember, being a teenager, you're not really popping for the heels at that time. Now it's more of a mainstream thing where people cheer for the bad guys. But at that time, I think it was more just I enjoyed the character. The Gregory Helms character, it was fresh. It was something new that we hadn't really seen in WWE, especially being in the Cruiserweight division where that was majority of where I think the fans' eyes were, with that title. And I don't know. I think I really do appreciate and, the commitment that you had from going from the Hurricane being that comedy guy to that heel character and really, really getting it over as a heel. I don't know.
Yeah, and that was difficult because I didn't have a good heel turn. It wasn't really a significant heel turn. Yeah. So going from this character that people really love to trying to make everybody hate me, and there was a lot of little subtle things I did that people now understand what I was doing, but at the time they really didn't. But it was interesting. It was fun to do. But sometimes because I would like make myself angry because I wanted to present a negative energy. Whereas the Hurricane, I wanted to be happy and stuff like that all the time, and I would go out there smiling, and I think people pick up on that. People perceive that, and I think that's what makes a good character and a performer. People pick up on your energy. They pick up on your vibe. Whereas Gregory Helms, I would have to put myself in the angry place. I'd be back there and I would just think about stuff that make me mad so I could walk out to the ring and be like, whatever. But after it was over, sometimes I would still be angry. So later on that night, it was kind of hard. I was like, man, I got to get back to my happy self again. So that was the only negative part about being, you hear some actors talk about it, like when Jack Nicholson was talking about the Joker and stuff like that. It's like, man, it just puts you in a dark place. Like I never understood or believed that shit too. I had to force myself to be angry 4 nights a week. It did. It was pretty interesting.
And how did that heel turn really come about? Because the Hurricane character was doing. I mean, it's one of the most iconic characters I think for me of all time. When it comes to gimmicks, how did they decide, or if it was you or the company to really?
It was both, but I felt like it was time because after me and Rosie won the tag team titles, and then like we lost them to Trevor Murdoch and Lance Cade. And we were doing okay. Like we were doing good merchandise. We were getting the reactions, but I just felt like, okay, they're not going to do as much with it. They're not going to do much more with this character. Yeah. And, you got to be wise to that. So, it was my idea. I kind of had been pushing for it. I think I had pushed for it even before Rosie. And then when the Rosie idea came, kind of put it on the back burner because I started having a lot of fun again with Rosie. And, and we ended up being way more successful than they thought we were going to be as a tag team anyway. So, but I saw that, but there was a ceiling to how far they were going to let that character go. So, I had to branch out, and I had to, because I was so good at the comedy, and when they needed a funny guy, I was the guy they went to. And it didn't matter that I could do all these other things. It didn't matter how good I could still wrestle. If they needed a comedy, that's what they knew me as. And so the Gregory Helms thing was, I had to remind them of what I could do in the ring as well. And I remember, only a few weeks in, I came through the curtain, and Arn Anderson was right there, and he goes, "Damn, kid, I forgot how good you were." Wow. And I was like, I appreciate it, And I did appreciate it, but at the same time, I was like, damn, I guess you can actually work the people behind the scenes too, because they really felt like the Hurricane, like I was really the superhero guy. And I was like, that was y'all's idea. Y'all wanted me to do that.
Yeah. Wow. And I know a little bit, I mean, I've read and I've seen in interviews here and there how the character was created, the Hurricane, with the Green Hornet ring and was Stone Cold and The Rock. How did
The
that
Green Lantern ring, man. Don't
Green
you
Lantern,
put no green Hornet shit.
Hornet.
Come on.
I know people say it all the time. Green Hornet, Green Lantern, Green Lantern. Sorry, man.
Oh, no problem.
Yeah,
So what was the question?
How did the character develop? Because I know it was some from Stone Cold and The Rock, or I read something like that it was they saw the ring and then it was like, I don't know, something like that.
No, I have a Green Lantern tattoo on my shoulder.
Okay.
And so and I would always wear comic book shirts. I got one on. Well, this is my shirt now, but it's comic book style. I would always wear comic book shirts backstage anyway. I never hid that I was a comic book fan. See, now in the the age of the Marvel taking over Hollywood, everybody's a comic book fan, but it wasn't the case back then.
Yeah.
And so they knew I was a comic book fan, and the whole gimmick kind of came about. Well, now I'm Hurricane Helms. I was Gregory Helms on my TV debut in WWF at the time.
Yeah.
And but then I became Hurricane Helms. But I'm still dressed like Sugar Shane, wrestle like Sugar Shane, no character, just Hurricane Helms. And I'm doing a backstage skit with Steve Austin. And the script was kind of ad-lib stuff. We had bullet points, but I didn't really know what I was going to say because I didn't know what Steve was going to say. And he's Steve Austin; he can say whatever the fuck he wants. I'm just hoping I don't get fired. Yeah. I'm hoping I don't get furloughed.
Furlough.
And so Steve asked me about my tattoo, and I just started talking about the Green Lantern like it was a real person. And to this day, I don't know why. But I was like, yeah, he knocked down Superman one punch, bam. And I don't know why the hell I was talking like that. And somebody thought it was funny, and so then I had a couple weeks of it's like, okay, because this was during the invasion angle, and it's like, okay, say something, but then kind of trail off into a comic book thing. I was like, okay, and I was just not really knowing where they were going. I just kind of assumed I was going to be a guy who liked comic books, and so I would just trail off and just talk about some kind of weird comic book shit, and then and then a week or two later, a couple weeks of doing that, I know I ended up giving Steve Austin a Green Lantern shirt on TV. And you can imagine how DC Comics had to be thrilled about that. They invited me to their office in New York, and they gave me like one of everything. They just gave me boxes of swag because millions of people on TV just saw this guy that nobody knows give a Green Lantern shirt to Stone Cold Steve Austin, and he took it.
Wow.
And so so anyway, then a couple of weeks later, whatever, Stephanie McMahon presented the idea to me, about having a full cape and a mask, and I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot.
Wow, interesting story. And I know, referencing The Rock too, beating The Rock. I mean, that's a lot of what people talk about when it comes to the Hurricane character. Yeah. How did you feel? Because I remember that segment before the match where you were in his dressing room and you were talking about the Scorpion King, and it was. I mean, that whole thing, man, was really like I think one of the most iconic Raw scenes that I've ever experienced with that segment and going on to that match, eliminating The Rock, and winning. So how did that feel? I mean, being or experiencing it yourself.
It was pretty good, but I think you combining the two. The one with the Scorpion King, that was a different one. That was the first time we ever did anything, and then we were in a battle royal later that night, and he came in. He actually eliminated me out of the battle royal, but when he came to get me and I started firing back on him, I could hear that crowd go crazy. And even after he eliminated me, I was like, man, like you just kind of hope that creative heard that they picked up on that. And luckily they did. And so then we had a couple weeks of more backstage promos. The one most famous where I was hiding in his locker room and jumped out and he had a tiny ding-a-ling, that one. And now we fast forward, we go to Cleveland, Ohio, and we do that's what we do, another backstage promo that leads into the match. But the match is already announced at that point, I think. So
gotcha.
But it was insane, man. There was a lot of pressure on me, believe it or not. I think a lot of people don't realize that all the pressure was on me that night. Because if The Rock's going to WrestleMania against Austin, that's already in the works. Yeah. If the match with me absolutely sucks, he's still going to WrestleMania with Steve Austin.
Yep.
If the match with me sucked, you would have never heard of me again. So all the pressure is on me, 100%. But The Rock is just awesome, man. He's an awesome guy behind the scenes. He was an awesome guy to work with. I don't have anything bad to say about that guy, man. That was a really fun time.
Wow. And him, being in that scenario with The Rock, I mean, at the time, I think he was just breaking out really big in Hollywood, right? 2003, 2004 time. And
yeah, that's when he was Hollywood Rock.
Yeah, Hollywood Rock. And I mean, to be in that position just shows how much they believed in you. I mean, being so committed with the character and, showing really how much you love the business, for The Rock to be able to be in that situation. They wouldn't just do that to anybody, especially like
but The Rock had to push for it. The Rock really liked the character.
Yeah.
And he really liked the entertainment, and he saw how hard I was working for it. So, if he didn't push for it, it wouldn't have happened. The promos would have happened, but the match wouldn't have went down, especially with me going over, wouldn't have went out without The Rock pushing for it. So,
of course.
But then again, the company had to agree to it. So there were quite a few people in creative that were really behind me. Not 100%, but there were certain. I did have some allies.
Gotcha. And speaking of allies, now I'm going to talk about the allies you had at ringside or in the ring. You had assigned sidekicks. You had Molly Holly, Rosie, Stacy Keibler. What are your thoughts, or what were your thoughts being aligned with them, or individually, Stacy and Rosie at one time?
I mean, it was fun. Each one of them was different. My first one was actually, I know when I came over with WCW as a part of the Alliance, they would put different ones with me. Like I had Tori Wilson, I would team with her. And then they put Ivory with me. And you would see matches, and sometimes I would team with Lance Storm, and Ivory would be with us. And then Mighty Molly came along, and I chose Molly over Ivory. And each one of them just brought something different to the table, and I mean, I love teaming with Rosie. I actually wasn't on board for that in the beginning, the idea, because I'd already had a sidekick. I'm like, man, I got to do this again. Did we do this? And but they presented the idea to me, and we were patterned off the TV show Lost. Hurley, there's a big guy named Hurley, and I always forget the little guy's name. But those two guys are who me and Rosie were patterned off of.
Wow.
Yeah, but I like Rosie so much as a human being that we became close, and it really showed. I think in our work, we worked really hard, and they didn't have any major designs for that combination, but it was one of those things where we just got over with the crowd, we got over with our work, and when we became the tag team champions, it was a big moment for us. Yeah. Stacy that was our idea. That was based on, we did because we were doing some kind of match with Maven and Simon Dean when he was doing the Richard Simmons gimmick.
Yeah.
And something where they were bullying Stacy, and me and Rosie saved her, and then her mask is really just one of my merchandise masks that she cut the green off of.
Oh wow.
And put it on. And then she came out with that little outfit, and Vince loved that, and she loved it, and we loved it. So we kind of created that gimmick for ourselves.
Yeah.
So yeah.
That's awesome. And now, being almost 30 years in the business, or involved in it somewhat, I think a Hall of Fame induction is inevitable for you. I know a lot of guys, they don't like to talk about it because, for whatever reasons. But what are your thoughts on, being possibly inducted into WWE Hall of Fame, and who do you think you would pick to induct you?
I mean, it might happen. Who knows if it really will? Though there's a lot of people that deserve to go in there too, so that aren't in there. So who knows? As far as who would induct me, probably Matt or Jeff. I'd probably want one of those guys to do it. If Chris Kanyon was still around, I would like for it to be him, but
of course,
it'd have to be somebody like that, or even Jimmy Hart. Jimmy Hart was the whole three count gimmick in WCW was Jimmy Hart's idea, so he might be another one, but it's got to actually happen first before I put too much thought into that.
Of course, I know that, but I know that you're very active on social media. It's kind of how I came across, to talk to you, and you always discuss everything that's going on with different companies that are around Impact and AEW, and you've been a producer, you've been a part of the product everywhere. What do you see right now as, your spot where you are, where you're invested when watching the product?
You mean what product do I like the best, or what do you mean?
Yeah, that's in other words. Yeah.
Man, believe it or not, and there's going to be people that, because when I post about it, don't believe it, but what Impact Wrestling is doing right now is the most interesting stuff. I watch Impact, and then on Wednesday night, I love the AEW versus the NXT war. I love that Wednesday night war, so to speak.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff. Ring of Honor is kind of like, they're doing this. They're kind of on hiatus right now. They're putting out content, but it's not in ring. It's not storyline, storyline driven. Raw at times can be tough, and it was tough when I was there. I understand 3 hours every Monday night is just a lot to sit through sometimes.
Yeah.
And without fans, especially. I can't wait to have fans back in the audience, man. I've always appreciated fans, but I think now the industry more than ever understands how vital fans are to what we're doing. But back to your question, Impact, AEW, and NXT, that's the stuff that's really driving me right now.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was talking about, because I keep referring back to Dave LaGreca, because I recently just spoke to him a few days ago, and we were both discussing what is our favorite spots right now. And for him, he's more into that. He was a fan of the Georgia Championship Wrestling. He loves watching NWA. Me, I agree. I'm agreeing with you. I said Impact just because you're not seeing much difference from when there was fans and when there's not fans. Everything still feels the same. The vibe is the same, and they're utilizing their stars. For example, what we saw with Tommy Dreamer last week, that promo he gave with Moose.
Fantastic.
You're not going to see that in WWE today. You're not going to see, let alone Tommy Dreamer, So I think that what they're doing with utilizing.
I'm looking forward to Slammiversary, big time.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it as much as I'm looking forward to anything else.
Yeah, and there's rumors circulating. I don't know if they're true or not with these companies that Gallows and Anderson are on their way there, and I don't know how true that is or not. But anybody who shows up, I don't know. For me, Impact right now is like where I'm completely invested. I watch everything, but for Impact, I don't know. It's a different feeling than what I'm used to seeing from that product.
Yeah. I like Impact, and I like AEW is still so fresh. I'm still checking all of that out, not getting used to those new characters, but there is some really good content out there. It's definitely missing something because of not having our audience out there, but there's still some good content out there, and I'd rather have this more than not have anything. But at the same time, with everything that's going on, I like being at home. I just got an offer today to go do an appearance in North Dakota, and I was just like, no. I've had more than one since this COVID thing has started. Several offers to go do this, to go do that, and I'm just like, no. I said, I appreciate it so much. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm staying my ass home.
Now it's going to kind of lead me into my next question was, what's next for Shane Helms, the Hurricane?
I'm still in contact with WWE. I chat with somebody from there every week, and when live events start back up, that's probably when you'll see me come back, if that's the case.
Of course.
I'm back training again because there have been offers for me to put the spandex back on. I never actually retired from in-ring competition. I never uttered those words.
I've never heard that before, so I don't know.
Yeah, I never uttered those words. So seeing how the body comes back together, I will be 46 in a week. So, and I took my first bump at 13 years old. So the body's a mess. If I'm being honest, the body's beat to death. But I got a couple more. I got a little bit left in the tank, so we'll see how that goes. I just really it's a wait and see thing right now,
Of course. And that was kind of I was going to go with the next one too. With if you saw yourself, staying in the ring or just being outside, where do you see yourself, with in the upcoming time? There's really no timetable for anything right now with what's going on. So that was kind of where I was going to go with that.
It's hard to say, like I said, until this picks up, who knows what can happen. But I do have a couple of goals, but there's certain things, and I've always been like this. I keep it close to the vest,
Yeah.
I don't talk about shit to the shit to talk about, in terms of what I do with my career, So, right now I'm just working on getting back in shape, mainly just because I need to, as a matter of fact. But Also, I mean, if the furlough continues, and to me, until I go back, a furlough is being the same as firing. You know, that's just how I look at it. Unless I go back, you know, that could have been my last run there. Yeah. And if everything picks up and I don't go back there, I'll still be doing appearances and stuff. And I got to fit back in the spandex anyway. So that's my goal right now, just to get back in spandex shape and just go on from there.
Awesome. And I know, you know, the world being in a weird place right now, you especially being in a position where you're given this gimmick and you're like, well, you know, I'm going to make it work, but it's weird at first. And, you know, we're seeing stars like Apollo Crews and Sean Spears across the board trying new things. Is there any advice for anybody watching that you can give, you know, being in this pandemic right now in a weird situation? How do you get your character over while they're trying new things in the ring? Like,
well, commitment is number one. Commitment is everything, you know, and I've seen guys try new things for the sake of trying new things, but their heart's not in it.
Of course.
Or maybe their heart's not in it, and maybe they're just not as good as an actor as they think they are, you know, and that's part of it. That's part of the gig, you know, especially when it comes to promos. And so you got to be, if it's a character gimmick, something like Hurricane, you got to be committed to it no matter what. But
of course.
And it's got to be something you're comfortable with too. You know, don't do something different just to be different. You know, it needs to be something that's authentic and that you can really put all. Because I mean, the thing with the Hurricane, even though it wasn't my idea, I'm a lifelong comic book fan. Like that was so easy. You know, the main writer with WWE at the time, Brian Gerwitz, wanted to do a superhero character. Here comes this massive superhero fan who happens to be a wrestler. And it just fit perfectly, because I was comfortable with it. So it needs to be something you're comfortable with, and you just got to commit to it 100%.
Awesome, man. And I do appreciate that because, you know, we see a lot today, these kind of gimmicks where in your situation, they're a little weird. They're not comfortable with it. And I think more than ever, you can see it now. You can see the authenticity on screen. Mm-hmm. And all the respect, you know, to you for being able to pull that off the way you did for so long. Is there any last things you have, any last words you have for anyone listening who want to hear more from you, who want to hear Howard Helms or your Twitter?
Oh, yeah, definitely on all social media fronts. It's at ShaneHelms.com. That's because my website is ShaneHelms.com. If you're talking about podcasts, I got Highway to Helms that's out. It's about every week and a half, I think is when I do it. I was trying to do it every week, but sometimes I just get lazy. If I'm being honest, it's about every week and a half. You know, it's a one-man show. I try to keep it light, about 45 minutes. I don't give you these 3-hour trilogies.
Of course.
And also I just partnered with the Pro Wrestling Report 360, which is partnered with Fight TV. And so every week we bring you, every Thursday night we do a show called Prime Time with Hurricane Helms. It's myself, Dave Hero, and Damian Nelson. And we kind of cover everything in the wrestling world. And that's really rejuvenated my interest in the business. Even though I never had lost it, like now I'm paying even closer attention to everything so I can talk more about it in detail on the show. And I'm having a blast with that. So actually 2 podcasts out a week. You know, it's Highway to Helms and Primetime with Hurricane Helms. So check out both of those. And you can find out everything about those 2 shows on ShaneHelms.com.
Awesome, man. Awesome, man. I want to thank you for, taking the time to do this. I know I've been chasing for a little while, and I'm glad we were able to do this. And I hope everything works out for you, man, and you and your family stay safe during these crazy, crazy times.
You too, man. You too, man. You guys stay safe, and I appreciate you reaching out, and I'm glad we could connect, man.
Thank you, man.